Welcome to the Mastro Podcast, where music meets the cutting edge of technology. I'm your host, Kim Bingham, and today we're diving into Blockchain 101 for musicians with Dr. Kathryn Messegee. Kathryn is not only a brilliant mathematician, she's an artist, an author, a composer, and a trailblazer in blockchain technology as co-founder of the Geode Blockchain. Settle in as we break down complex tech into beats that even a musician can groove to. Let's get started. Kathryn Messegee, thank you so much. I say, Dr. Kathryn Messegee, let me be. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Mastro Podcast. So honored to have you here today.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's such a joy. You're working in the most exciting space, I think, with so much potential to really, really empower artists and to help them. So excited to be here.
Great. Well, this is a perfect way to start this conversation. And thanks for that. So, Kathryn, you are a mathematician, you have a doctor in mathematics, you are also the founder of the Geode, or co-founder of the Geode Blockchain. Could you please just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So my PhD in math is focused on logic, which turns out to be really, really handy when it comes to kind of how these sort of more technical things that we want to build. And I spent a whole career, as did my co-founder, my husband Tom, developing cutting edge prototype technologies. And then we were watching blockchain and crypto and Web3, watching it come along. And when I realized what you could do with it, which took me a little while, but I'm like, wait a minute. You could really put the power back in the hands of creators. You could really enable them to sort of take back their own economic destiny. That's when we had to get involved, and we decided to create Geode, to create our own layer one blockchain with to a set of apps to encourage other people to build apps. It just comes down to a huge fire for empowering the individual, because we've been in this era of what we would call now the Web2 era, which is what everybody's used to, right? It's YouTube and Spotify and LinkedIn and everybody's favorite apps. But they're all, in some way, they have the centralized middleman kind of taking a piece of your profit, or and some I would go so far as to say exploiting the creator for profit. People are starting to catch on, and I was one of them. I've written 17 books. I've got 6 albums out, and so I'm one of them, sitting there going, wait a minute. When do I get paid? Like, everybody else is getting paid, I'm not getting paid. And so that kind of frustration, along with our kind of tech nerd background, we're like, we have to do this. There needs to be a new era where the creators, the people actually being productive and creating cool things, are the ones getting paid directly. And you can do that with Web3, and you can't do that with Web2. So that's what was exciting. That's why we did it.
That's amazing. Well, I remember being pre-internet myself, and I don't mind saying I'm a proud Gen Xer.
Yes, Gen X.
Well, we have an interesting perspective, because we've now learned the internet sort of twice. We've learned it the first time, and now we're learning it in Web3. And I think that perspective adds a lot of, we have a certain wisdom and perspective because we are the generation that adapted to it when we were young professionals, adapted to the internet as young professionals, and now coming into it. And the promise of the first of our Web2 internet was that it was freedom. We'd be able to connect directly with our fans. We'd, that sort of... all of that. And so it's turned out that actually that's not quite the case. So blockchain offers us actual freedom of ownership. That's really the difference here? Is it? Yeah. How is
it's freedom of ownership? That's a good way to put it. And I'll expand on that. And it's even more than that. So freedom of ownership, let's start with that. You wrote the song, you recorded the song, you edited the song, right? You did the work and offered your own innate creativity to bring this beautiful thing into existence, right? That song, that painting, that book, that whatever. And so of course, even in our current system, you own the copyright. And what does that get you? It doesn't seem like much, right? But then the difficulty is then you have to go through these services, like, to print a book, I need a printer, and then I put it on Amazon. Amazon wants their cut, and the printer wants their cut, and they've got to get paid because they have buildings and employees and things like that. And so by the time it gets to me, it's this like tiny amount. Or when you put a song out, right, and you're trying to connect directly with your fans, and you put your song on, there's, I don't know, at least 96 different services around the world, streaming services around the world, and you put it out there because you want people to hear it, and they do, and you're like, woo, and then you get paid, and you're like, wait a minute, very, very small. Wait, how much did Spotify make off that? So the ownership is the first step, and you'd say, well, I have ownership now, but it's very hard to verify. How many people are out there spoofing what you're doing, copying what you're doing, calling it their own? How do you verify who is actually the original owner and creator of that? So blockchain can do that for you. But then that direct relationship that we craved so much, that was so exciting about the promise of the internet, the Web2 when it first got started. We wanted that, right? There's nothing more exciting than connecting directly with your fans, with the people who listened to your music or read your book, and they were so excited and they felt it, right? They felt something, and that's why you get into this, because you love to see that, right? That you connected and they felt something. And that promise didn't really pan out in the Web2 world because of the kind of this middleman idea, right? I'm going to put my song on Spotify, and every time it gets played, I get 0.008 of 1 cent. How much did Spotify get? And it's like, wait a minute. I really want that direct, really no middleman. And that's what's so unique that Web3 can do that Web2 can't do. Like, I could put my song in with the Copyright Office, right? And every time we do that, and we do that, but it doesn't necessarily stop people from copying it, using it unlicensed or things like that. You can have more control over its use. You can verify ownership and have more control over its use and distribution in a Web3 scenario. And you can have that more direct relationship with your fans. And people are going to be cynical. I know it. I know people are going to be cynical because we've been through this one before. We're like, oh yeah, you're going to have this direct relationship with your fans. And we're like, yeah, that's what I want. And you sign up for it and you go, wait a minute, I'm being exploited. as are my fans. I don't like this. So, so to hear that again, oh, now you're going to have this direct relationship with your fans, and being Gen X, which I am too. Right. We're so cynical to begin with. We're like, yeah, whatever. I'll believe it when I see it. You have to kind of see it to really understand. Oh, wait, no, really, you do. The Web3 world, which is a combination of blockchain, the apps you can build on it, and the crypto that kind of enables the whole thing. You are in 100% control. That is ownership, distribution, use, relationship to the people who are purchasing, using, buying, listening, reading. And you can't do that in a Web2 world, because in a Web2 world, you've got to have a centralized entity who's running a server. Like Spotify is a centralized entity, and all those songs are sitting on a big server, probably in Virginia. A lot of them are, and they have to run that. They have to pay for that facility and they have employees and buildings and, rent to pay and electricity bills. And so they've got to make money. So they end up kind of, just pulling the profits where they can. It's not in their best interest to send those profits to the musicians, or in the case of, like, let's say Facebook, they charge advertisers to put an ad in front of you, and the advertiser pays Facebook instead of paying you. But if they wanted to pay you, they'd put themselves out of business. They can't do that. Right? They've got shareholders and they've got, all these things. And so it's they're kind of forced to siphon profit off. They don't have much of a choice. So in the Web3 world, you've got that ownership, you've got complete control over how that file is used, distributed. Yeah, that's a long answer, but
that's great. I mean, I would just say that, and I've mentioned this before in other podcast episodes and in some things I've been writing about. A lot of the premise of these platforms that came out originally in Web 2, for if we talk about Spotify specifically, personally, my opinion is that it was initially presented as a marketing, but it was a marketing platform for all artists, independent and major label, to be able to be on the same platform and stream their music. Because prior to that, prior to the internet, the music industry really was cleaved into the independent music industry and the major label music industry, and there was different media, radio stations, it was different clubs we played. It was really like the paths just didn't cross us. Once an independent got signed, that they'd be privy to all this marketing and stuff like that. So the profit motive built into Spotify from the very beginning was based on helping artists market themselves on the streaming platform. But other than that, what they were going to pay the artists from the beginning, we basically didn't have a choice. We just took it because that's what there was. And so that profit motive has always existed in Web 2. And so, and I don't think there can be enough change in Web 2, especially with now the prospect of Web 3 here, to accommodate what artists and creators really would want. So we really are incentivized to move to the blockchain. Now, and I'll just mention Chris Dixon's book, Read, Write, Own, which explains a lot. I haven't read it. I've read about it, and I know the principle between read, write, right, which is the Web 2 where we're at now, and read, write, own is Web.
Right. Yeah, no, and you're right, and that is a great book. And I read it just recently, and it's like a business degree. It's like an MBA in all things internet business. It walks you through kind of from the beginning of the internet, of the Web 2 internet, and kind of, how that evolved, and then how blockchain and Web 3 is kind of the next evolution of that. Kind of puts it all in the big picture. Really, really, like, well researched and well written book. That's the best book I've read in a while. Highly recommend. But yeah, it gets to that point, right? At first, the internet was, you could just read things. There were just static web pages, and you could read information. And then came along kind of social media and such, and you could write. And that includes, putting out songs and, putting out videos and things like that. So you could produce something and put it out there that other people could consume. And then the next step is to own what you consume. And then he's missing a little something right there. He's missing something there about the lack of middleman and that you can have in Web 3. There's something extra. It's read, write, own directly. It's something else. It's needed, like, right there. Yeah.
There. And can you let me ask you, because you do have the Geode Blockchain. How does the blockchain work? You can explain that.
Yeah. So this is one of those things that everybody should understand. So I'm gonna give. It's gonna be really simplistic, but this is really all it is. It's really so much simpler than you think. So let's suppose I'm just tracking everything that's happened on my system, every transaction, everything that was uploaded, every song that was streamed, somebody paid for something, bought something, transferred coin, everything that happened on the system. And I track all that, and I make a big list of it for 6 seconds. And for 6 seconds, here's everything that happened on this system. And I take that list of things that happened and I chunk them together, and I call that a block. And that's my first block. And then I hash that, which is really a way to like kind of collapse all that into a single little encrypted string of numbers and letters. But it makes it nice and small and gives it a very like a unique fingerprint. So I hash that set in that block, and I go, okay, that's block one, and block one has this identifier. Now I take the next 6 seconds and everything that happened in those next 6 seconds. And that's my second block. It's just a block of what happened on this system. And that's my second block. And I can hash that to give it a unique identifier. And then I chain them together. Like this is the first 6 seconds. This is the second 6 seconds. This is the third 6 seconds. And then I just keep going. That's it. So it's a chain of blocks where every block is everything that happened on the system in that period of time. And so like for Geode, it's 6 seconds is where we chunk everything every 6 seconds. Some chains are every 3 seconds. Bitcoin is like 10 minutes. And it's, just every chain is a little bit different, but yeah, it's just what happened here in this period of time. And then they're all sort of daisy chained together because you take that little fingerprint from the first block, that hash, and you put it at the beginning of the second block so that we started here and now here's what happened in the next 6 seconds. Hash that little fingerprint, and that's at the beginning of the next block. And that makes sure, this is really important because you don't want to be able to go backwards and change history, change what happened. You want it to be unchangeable, undeletable, unhackable, right? Secure. The history of what happened is what happened. It's an indelible truth. And that's what it is, and that's what it achieves, which is really cool. Because in a Web 2 world, if I own the server because I am Spotify, I am LinkedIn, I am Facebook, whatever, it's my server. I can go in there and change anything I want. I can change things. I can delete things. I can kind of corrupt that data any way I want. And I can prevent you from doing things or allow you to do things. I'm the one with the power. I'm the centralized authority. But in this blockchain world, the time history of what happened is what happened, and you don't get to change it no matter what. So it's really, really great for anything around when you want an indelible truth of what happened, which would include, I made this song, and this is the song I made. And if somebody else comes along and claims they made that song, well, they're wrong, because here's the indelible proof that was me when I registered that song to the chain and said this was my song. So yeah, but that's what blockchain is, and it becomes distributed. So how do you run it? Where do you run it? So you could run that on some centralized server, just like the Web 2 guys do right now. You could. And some people do. Some big companies will have a private blockchain and it's on their server and they control it. Now, they still don't get to change it. They still don't get to go in and change history. But at least it's kind of private for them for their own internal work. But then you have these public blockchains like Geode, like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, DOT, and others. And those are, to be public, means they are run on computers scattered all across the world. So instead of having all of that being tracked on one big server somewhere, they call it decentralized. So it's not central. It's on a computer in my house, and computers, you know, and there's a guy in Montana, and there's someone in Richmond, Virginia, and there's people in Europe, there's people in Australia, and people in you know, Nepal, and they're all running computers in their houses, in data centers, you know, that they rent space at, anywhere. And that same like Geode software is running on all those computers. So you remember back in the days of like Napster, and people had music across all their own personal computers, right? This is like the good version of that, where people are running the blockchain server. So you've got all these people running that Geode software, tracking, you know, 6-second chunks of what happened all over the world. And when it's decentralized like that, that gives you this security. Because, and I can feel what everybody's thinking. They're like, but wait a minute, but if I'm running it on my laptop right here, don't I have access to mess with it? Can't I like hack it? No. So it's written in a way that, because it's that hashed, unchangeable history of what happened, if I mess with it, it kicks me out of the system.
Okay.
So there's built-in, yeah. If you're coming, you're running the software on your computer and you mess with that, it's going to kick you out. So it's ready for that. It's prepared for that. Yeah. And so by having it distributed all over the world, you can't take it down. I don't know if you've ever been affected by the DDoS attack. But if I, yeah, it's terrible. So a denial of service, a distributed denial of service attack is basically like, you know, you could do this to, let's say, we'll pick on Spotify because they're fun to pick on. So if somebody wanted to do a DDoS attack on Spotify, I could do that. And they've got centralized servers. Everything they're doing is on some big server in some data center somewhere, and it's all in one place. So all I have to do is send so many commands, so many requests, just overwhelm that server with so many actions that it just can't. It just doesn't know what to do. And it kind of freezes up going, whoa, I don't know what to do. There's too many incoming requests. I don't know what to do. And so those are very popular style of attack. And it doesn't hurt anything on their server, but it prevents anybody from using it. So the whole system would go down. Nobody could use it until they solve, you know, that they stop that attack. Which is the science of itself that we won't get into. But if you attempt to do the same thing to a public blockchain that's distributed on hundreds, if not thousands, of computers all around the world, which computer do you attack? You can't. You don't even know where they are. It could be in my house. It could be in some guy's house in Kathmandu, Nepal. It could be like, you don't even know where to attack. And even if you attack one of those computers, you'd have to take out all of them to stop the chain. It's not going to be done. So it's very, very secure and resilient in ways that the centralized systems are not. And so that's pretty exciting too. So it's unstoppable, as is the crypto aspect of it. Yeah.
Well, so yeah, here, let's talk about, the crypto aspect, more so about the concerns that I've heard from artists about environmental concerns around crypto mining.
Yeah.
Are NFTs bad for the environment? Are NFTs bad for the environment? Start there.
That's a really good question. And the answer is no. So let's talk about where that came from, though, and why that concern is legitimate, and then how the industry has evolved to correct that. So in the beginning, it was Bitcoin. Bitcoin was the first, blockchain, and Bitcoin is the name of the chain, and Bitcoin is the name of the crypto that operates on the chain, right? And they were the first. And so, they're the big 800-pound gorilla in this space. And they operate the way that their software works. It's called proof of work. And it doesn't mean your work. It means the computer machine's work. And so the harder, this is an oversimplification, but it gets the point across. The harder that machine works to solve a puzzle, it's given a puzzle, it has to solve the puzzle. So it has to work really hard to solve the puzzle. And it's not you, it's the machine, and it's doing it automatically. But the harder it works to solve that puzzle, the more likely that your computer is going to be the one that is rewarded with a coin for being part of the network. So everybody who's running a computer on these networks, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, Geode, and such, they get rewarded with coin as a thank you for contributing your computer to the network. So with Bitcoin, well, the way they know that you're a legitimate computer on the network is the computer has worked very hard. So then what happens is, because not everybody gets paid every day in Bitcoin, it's a little bit random. So I go buy a faster, better computer that works harder because I want to be the one to get that coin. But then my neighbor goes and buys an even better, even faster computer to get that coin. So you end up with, if you do a search on Bitcoin mining machines, unbelievable the power that these machines suck up. They have become massive, just incredibly powerful, and therefore take a lot of electricity. So then you had these companies come along and go, this is a great way to make money. I'm going to start a whole company that does nothing but Bitcoin mining. And I'm going to have all these huge power sucking servers. And I'm going to get that coin. And it's just this race to that, just increasing power usage. And it does. So Bitcoin mining sucks up an enormous amount of power. Now, this is a real problem, like you see in Texas the last couple of winters. They've had some hard winters. And the Bitcoin miners had to shut down in order to have enough electricity on the grid for people to be warm. It's like, oh, okay, this is not cool. This is not, we're using all this electricity. And is this really the right use of all that electricity? So then other chains came along. Ethereum was originally proof of work, just like Bitcoin, and was sucking up a lot of electricity. And Ethereum was also the first chain to have NFTs. And that's how that got associated with NFTs using too much electricity. And so Ethereum saw the writing on the wall and we're like, yeah, using all this electricity is not great. We need to do better. So they switched to a system called proof of stake, where you don't need fancy high-end computers that use a lot of electricity, and cut their electrical usage down to something much closer to what Geode is, which is very lightweight, very little electricity usage, very, very simple. So all the rest of the chains out there now, other than Bitcoin, there's a few proof of work chains left around sucking up a lot of electricity, but 90% of the chains out there are proof of stake, which is very lightweight and uses very little electricity. And then so that solves that. And then NFTs are basically just a way, like when you make a song and you turn it into an MP4, you don't know it, but that's kind of an NFT right there, that little file. It's just a digital file. When I take your digital file and I hash it, that whole hashing little fingerprint that proves that this is your unique song, that is now an NFT, or non-fungible token, which is, it's fancy speak for saying that it's not fungible. Fungible is like dollars. $1 is as good as another dollar. There's no difference, right? All dollars are the same. All Geode coins are the same. No one coin is more valuable than another coin on the same network, right? So those are called fungible because they're all the same. Non-fungible, it just means unique. Like the song you made is unique. You can't change it out for a different song and have it be the same. So every song you make is non-fungible. It's unique. They would do better to just call it unique tokens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that doesn't require any extra electricity. That's just one thing you could do. So when you're choosing a blockchain that you want to play with, experiment with, work on, look at that baseline. If it's proof of work, it's using a lot of electricity, and that's not good. If it's proof of stake, it's using very, very little electricity, no problem.
Okay, so is Bitcoin is still proof of work? It's just Ethereum that's moving?
Bitcoin is still, yeah, Ethereum started that way, but then changed, and they have successfully switched. And their proof of stake, they've been that way for a couple of years now. And all the new chains that are coming, that are starting now these days, they learn that lesson, and they don't start as proof. They just don't. They come in as proof of stake. So I'm not too concerned about that at this point, for because everybody, they learned they learned quickly, and they changed.
That there's the space is evolving so quickly, and environmental concerns is, I mean, it's pretty much, most people,
Oh, yeah.
so that the industry would also, the technology would evolve with that in mind. And so okay, so
Yeah, and it did, yeah.
NFTs are not bad for the environment, right? We are clarifying that.
No, not at all. NFTs are just one thing you can do on a blockchain, and but just like double check. There's still maybe 5 or 6 chains out there that are running on proof of work, and you'd probably want to avoid those. And put your NFTs on a chain that's proof of stake.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's that. Thank you. That clarifies a lot. And let's talk a little bit about NFTs and smart contracts. And I'll let me start with my oversimplification of NFTs that I say. You can tell me where I'm right and where I'm like totally off. So when someone asks me, well, what's an NFT? A musician asks me, what's the difference between an MP3 NFT? Because my basic thesis with Bostro, and the reason why I believe that artists should move to the blockchain, is because NFTs are a superior form of music delivery to MP3s. That's my thesis, and I think a lot of people agree with that, right? Right. So, and what?
Absolutely.
Okay. And the main difference, the basic way I explain the difference between an MP3 and an NFT is that an MP3 has a song file and metadata. And most independent artists are used to doing their metadata when they're uploading a song onto iTunes or sending it to a sync licensing. Like, they're used to putting in the writer, the title, the movie, all those things, and contact information, stuff like that, right? Like, if you really want to get into the nitty gritty of the metadata. And I say an NFT is pretty much the same thing, except the metadata is super boosted into a smart contract where you can get really detailed about who the rights owners are, who's getting paid what on the song, who contributed. You can get really, really detailed, what the perks are for the fan who buys it, all those things, and it's traceable on the blockchain. Go ahead, tell me how right or wrong that is.
That was 100% correct. That was the best explanation I've heard of it. So you can do so if you were to get generic with, and I'm not going to correct that at all. It was perfect. I'm just going to expand on it. So when you take that song and you're saying, I want to turn this song into an NFT, what you're really saying is, I want to register this to the blockchain in a way that I can track where it's going, who's listening to it. Maybe I want to give my fans, oh, well, if you bought my song, then I'm going to give you a discount on tickets to my show. What else can I do with it? And where it gets confusing is just because, what can you not do with it? You can do anything you want with it. So it's this big, wide open world where you don't just have 3 things you can do with it. You have a million things, whatever your imagination can dream up. So smart contracts are really, this is the most beautiful aspect of Web3 for me. If we didn't have smart contracts, none of this would be possible. All you would have is crypto. And it's like, okay, well, that's fun, but whatever. But the smart contracts are where it gets interesting, this ownership of what you're doing, this ability to track where it's going, how you're interacting with people who use it, resale, right? Like, if you have an NFT, is a form of a smart contract, right? It's one kind of smart contracts, one thing you can do with smart contracts, where you could program in, and a smart contract is just a piece of code that sits there and runs by itself and you don't have to touch it. And it can also take in coin. It's got its own wallet, can take in coin and send out coin. So there's all kinds of like cool things you can do with that. So with that contract that represents your song, your NFT, you can be as imaginative as you want. Let me give you an example. I can say, okay, I'm going to put out my song as an NFT, and so each copy, I'm going to make 1,000 copies of my song. That's 1,000 separate NFTs. And anyone who buys one of these copies, it's almost like a numbered art print. Anybody who buys one of those copies, I'm going to allow them to resell it at any time. And every time they sell it again and again, I get a cut of that as the original artist. Or I'm going to put out, concert tickets as NFTs. And anybody who buys one, so I have 1,000 concert tickets, those are 1,000 NFTs, and they can resell them, and I get a cut of that. Or with that ticket for the first week, gets them, or up to the concert, gets them a discount on merchandise, and at the concert gets them a discount on food and drink, and after the concert it gets them, I don't know, special video updates for me, or some kind of membership style perks, and you can design that any way you want, which is why it gets confusing. There's like such an open door of things you could do. It's that's why it just gets a little bit confusing. So it's a super smart version of an MP3, right? It's the song, it's the metadata, and it's all the perks and tracking that you could want to come with it. And that's why it's so exciting, for musicians, for artists, for authors, and even like for engineers, which you don't think of engineers as getting annoyed and uppity, but they really kind of are right now, which is, they do all this work and design that beautiful bridge. They design that amazing thing. And they're like, but wait a minute, and then I get, well, what if you designed a building and every time it's sold again, you got a piece of it? Or, you can do so much more with those, even for all kinds of creative and productive people.
That's very interesting. I think that's where NFTs and the blockchain becomes a game changer for all sorts of, creators, artists, creators, people that are developing site plans, or I was thinking about authors, and how they've tracking who's buying their books. And Amazon, great platform, we all use Amazon, or most of us do anyways, but I know that authors have had a very hard time, and you're an author as well, right? So hard time tracking what your readership is, and book resale. I mean, forget about that, right? But if it's an NFT,
right,
or there's if
it's an NFT, I could get a cut of that every time it sells. So you could still have this idea of, you bought the book, that copy of the book, therefore you own that copy of the book, and you could then sell that like you would at a garage sale, if you had a physical copy of the book, but then the author gets a piece of that every time it changes hands. Or you could, just the idea of knowing who is reading your books, who is listening to your music. People listen to my music on Spotify, I don't know who they are. I don't get any interaction. People buy my books on Amazon, I don't know who they are. And, unless they look at the last page of the book and go to my website and actually, link up with me there. There's that direct relationship and that ongoing relationship that's missing, that kind of falls off when somebody's like, they could be jamming out to your song, and that could be their favorite song ever, and it's one of those that's so stuck in their head they're playing it 100 times on repeat, and you will never know it. Well, and in a Web3 world, you'll know it.
Right. Except let's talk about identity in Web3, because when you say who's listening to, you could track, everyone's basically identified by a code or by a wallet address, right? It's not Kim Bingham at blockchain.com
Right.
like that. I'm 0x blah 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 or whatever, right? So can you explain a little bit about identity?
Yeah. That's a really, really good question. So you've got uh, full control over your identity on blockchain, which means you can be anonymous. So you get a wallet address. You could have 12 wallet addresses. You could have 100 wallet addresses, and it just looks like this big numbers and letters code. And if that's all you want, you can be anonymous like that, right? I am just 5DFG35, whatever. And I can be completely anonymous. And maybe that's what I want. But if I want to have a more solid identity, I can. So there's a couple of ways to do that. The one is called on-chain identity, where you have your account, and then in the interface next to your account, there's a little button where you can set your on-chain identity, and you can put in your name, your social media addresses. You can really dox yourself to whatever extent you want to, and go, "This is me." And then whenever anybody sees your wallet address, they won't see those numbers and letters anymore. They're going to see whatever name you decided to put there. And there are even registrar services that will verify your identity documents and verify your identity. So you can go so far as to having a verified legal identity on chain for everyone to see. Most people don't do that. Most people may put like a display name, I would call it, and put that out. Like, I'm not going to put my address out for everyone to see, right? You'd be a fool. But I will put, like when you go on Geode, you don't see my account number. You see Guru Kathryn as my display name on there. And people go, "Oh yeah, that's her. Yeah, sure." And yet, you can access some social media links and things like that. So you can go all the way as far as verified legal identity. You can, or you can go so far as just a display name, which as an artist, I can see that you want to do that. And there's some pluses there, or you can stay completely anonymous, right? So now if that's your fans and they're listening to your music and they've chosen to stay anonymous, you're not going to get any demographic data, geographic data, like that. And so that is one difference, right? In the Web2 world, you have no privacy. Your geographic data, your demographic data is going to be taken by these companies and parsed out and sold, and things like that. But you do have options in the Web3 world if you want to connect more deeply to those anonymous fans. There are social media available on Web3, right? Same ideas, same idea. Post, interact. There are newsletters and group messaging, and you could have a special club they could join, and that gets them into the group messaging or the newsletter, private messaging ability with you, where you can get to know them better, and they can come and find you on those apps that are also still Web3. So you're not giving up any control, and there's still no middleman taking any profit. Yeah, but most people, I would say 99.9% of everybody chooses to stay anonymous, unless you're the artist, you're the artist, you're the author.
Yeah.
And you want to put your name out there. Yeah.
Like for us as artists and creators, we want to have our identity, have a label, not just be a series of letters and numbers. We really do. We want to put an identity out there with a name that makes us identifiable, and then can also, what I've noticed, and I wanted to talk a little bit about community on blockchain and community in Web3. because we've had a lot of speculation in the crypto sense, and I think that's the degen part, right, of Web3.
Yeah.
Okay, for those of you listening out there that don't know that, degen has to do with speculation in crypto, right? That's sort of where that's slotted. And then we have have everyone else, or a lot of other people that are creating communities, or we're in Web3 for the purpose of creating community, of creating new business models and new ways of working. So what I've heard in the music community, from musicians working in Web3 is, and this is from Twitter Spaces or X Spaces that I've been listening in on, is that the artists that are working Web3 are happy working there, but they tend to be satellites working on their own, and they'd like to have community to, a name, a brand, something, a home that they can all kind of gather around to help each other and work together and collaborate and that sort of thing, leverage the work they're doing, their own work, with others to create even more success. So what can you tell me about community in blockchain and what you've observed?
Yeah. Oh, that's a whole show right there.
Okay.
So it's great. No, it's great. It's important, right? Because it's a great technology, but it's nothing without the people. And you do have this part of crypto and crypto culture and the crypto degens. And degen, think of it like, well, it's a play on words of degenerate, because they were called that for a long time, but also decentralized generation, the degen. And those two tend to be mostly crypto focused, and they do tend to be speculators. And crypto is just think of it like one app that you can run on blockchain is a crypto coin. It's just one thing you can do, but then you've got all these other cool things you can do: NFTs and smart contracts and apps of all kinds, social apps and messaging apps and all these things. So when some people talk about community, they're talking about a big bunch of traders speculating on coins. Let's throw that out. Let's just kind of like, put that to the side. Yeah. So that's like, okay, that's one thing. What we mean when we talk about community, we mean people coming together for a common purpose, real, like, actual community. And there's several ways you can do that. So you will find communities operating on, like, Discord is a very popular place for different communities to operate. But you'll also have on-chain communities, that's very exciting to me. So there are these things called decentralized autonomous organizations. A terrible name. The naming on Web3 is so bad. But DAOs, we'll get there. Cut the nerds a break, man. They're not good at marketing. So you have these DAOs or DAOs, right? And the DAO is you can create a community around anything and start a DAO. So what does that mean? That just means that you have a whole bunch of people who have the same common interest. You could build a DAO community on chain around just musicians, or a musician could build a DAO community that's all around their music, and it's for their fans to come and interact. You could have in that DAO, if you chose to, you could have your own coin, and that coin could get your fans discounts, extra perks, whatever. And so you've got these very flexible, cool ways of building communities and interacting with those communities on chain, whether that's a community of artists sharing together their own experiences and best practices, or one artist with their fans in that community. You'll even see fans come together around your art without your permission. Just start their own DAO or their own community. You see this now, right? You'll see fans come together quite on their own around somebody's music or art, or TV show, books, or whatever, making all that kind of thing. So community is huge, right? Because the technology, if nobody's doing anything with it, is worthless. It's about the people who are coming in and being creative and being productive. And so community is very important. So there's off-chain communities in like Discord or different types of Web2 social media where people gather and they talk about these things and support each other. And then there's on-chain communities like DAOs or DAOs, which that's a smart contract by itself, where you can even have your own coin if you want inside of that, and people can vote and decide what to do next. You can have your own governance inside of that. You can do all kinds of cool things with that. So the possibilities are endless.
It's pretty exciting. I mean, I'm excited because Mostro has a DAO. Right now, I'm the only person in the DAO, but I'm running the team of interns, wonderful people that have been helping to build this as a collective. Even if they're not officially in the DAO, it's still in the mindset of how this community is growing. So it's different than we call Mostro a company. I consider it an organization that's a community, and really keeping that in mind as we go. I'll just say, as a founder, and I know you're a founder as well, it's really important to keep those values like that. That's what we're building the community on, is based on the values that we're bringing, which are different than, it's a different range of values than in a traditional a company, Web2, let's say,
Right.
business and Web2 community. We can go wilder, we can go wider. There's more that can be done. It seems the motivations are basically different in DAOs.
Oh, they really are. Geode. So I have a company, but it's not Geode. Geode is. Tom and I founded that, and it's been up until this point an all volunteer community that came together to build this thing. And it's so funny because people were like, well, what's your revenue plan? Well, what's your profit model? I'm like, I don't have one. What's your revenue plan? That's not about that. It confuses people so much. And it's really kind of funny because they're used to that Web2 world where it's about profit and it's about revenue and about all of that. And instead, in this Web3 world, you do have this cool aspect of communities coming together to build something. And it's not that there's not money to be made, but the money to be made is for the users to make. Right. So I heard somebody say this really well. In Web2, you're the product that people are profiting off of. In Web3, you make the profit. So it's profit to the users as opposed to profit to some centralized entity.
Yeah. I find just building communities that based on our values, based on common values, and we're built. My mantra as a founder of a Web3 company, community organization, is build value on your, and then the monetization also comes with that too. So
it will come. Yeah, it just will. But I love that we can lead with the values.
Yeah.
You can lead with these core values, and people that agree and vibe with those core values will congeal around the project. And it's a joy. It's so much more of an exciting way to lead a project than the kind of top-down hierarchical, profit-driven.
It is, and
I like it.
As far as that's where, at least on Mostro's end, and I think Geode, it's the same mindset. Is for Mostro, what I wanted to do is create a safe place to work for artists, for musicians, where we didn't feel exploited going in, that we could see, because we're the ones in control. We can see where our work is going. Paid in micropayments, actually paid on micropayments per stream on streaming. We can see where the transactions are being made in real time. Like there'll be a dashboard up there on Mostro when it finally does get launched, where we'll be able to how our work is moving economically through the blockchain. And we haven't been able to see that. So this the money is there. The monetization comes with the community also coming together. It doesn't have to be just each individual
Yes.
there, slogging on our own. We can pool together around our values and create things that can really change our lives financially, socially. Like, yeah, these things.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then that sparks collaboration, which it just spirals up the awesome when the community comes together. This more collaborative approach that you see in Web3, community based, collaboration based, is part of what I love about it. It's not this isolated top down approaches. So yeah, it's the best.
And I know we're nearing the end of our conversation, and I know there'll probably be more, but I just want to just put a little parentheses around why adoption has been slow. Okay, because blockchain's been around for since 2008, right? And then 2014,
Yeah.
people started to build since then.
Yeah, 14, 15, when smart contracts came around, then it kind of started to take off. Um, and yeah, because it's been 15 years since Bitcoin, but the only thing Bitcoin could do was the Bitcoin coin, right? That was all you could do with it. So it wasn't until 2015 that you could really, with Ethereum, that you could do more. Um, and and I have completely lost my train of thought where I was going with.
Talking about why adoption has been slow, and I know
Right? Why? Yes.
the industry why it's been slow. There are certain reasons. I'm so speaking to other people in the industry about that. But what is your? I mean, please, from your perspective and your experience,
I
adoption been slow.
Yeah. So I've been talking to a lot of people about this. People from in their 20s to in their 70s, all kinds of people from all kinds of industries, technical people, non-technical people, artists, everybody, kids. I've been talking to kids, about these ideas. Um, it comes down to a couple of things. Number one, ease of use. It's got to be super, super quick and easy. Because in the Web2 world, you could make an account in a couple of clicks. Couple of clicks. If you ask anybody to do more than that, to come on board and make an account, they're not going to do it. So that's number one. It's got to be super easy, couple of clicks to come on board and make an account and get going. Secondarily, the language we use around it. Non-fungible tokens, decentralized autonomous organization. What in the heck is that? Like, no, nobody can make sense of it. A lot of chains are not marketing to everyday people. They're marketing to super technical people only, which is a really, really tiny little market. And so that's almost intentionally esoteric, right? And so that's why, and another reason why you're not seeing regular people adopting Web3 is because nobody's reaching out to regular people going, hey, look at this cool stuff. You can really do awesome things for yourself. And then I think, this is my own personal opinion, that from people I've talked to, when I'm interpreting what they're saying, is the third reason is it's so wide open. We're not used to having this much choice. We're not used to having this much freedom. We're not used to being the one in power. We came up in this Web2 world. And the generations behind us, the younger generations did as well. They came up in a Web2 world where other people are profiting off of your time, your attention, your creativity, your productivity, and they just got used to that. We all got used to it and went, oh, that's normal. Well, just because it's normal doesn't mean it's right. And so getting people to switch mindset of it doesn't have to be that way. That's our third challenge.
I found going conferences, tech conferences, especially in music. I was at a music conference in New York for the independent music industry, and there was only one panel on innovation and Web3, and the rest, a lot of it was railing against Spotify, who happened to be one of the biggest sponsors of that conference. And someone at the conference, and one of the panels said, "Why Spotify?" There's like having at an independent music conference, it's like having a cigarette company at a health convention. And I'm like, are you guys not knowing that there's a whole other way? Do we all have Stockholm syndrome here, that we've just grown up
Yes.
20 years and there's generations now that just think this is just the way it is. And the reason why I say Gen X, going back to the beginning of our conversation, why we have the perspective is because we grew up pre-internet, and so this fell onto our laps, and we were like, well, what are we going to do with this? And here, that's why I think in a lot of ways Gen X has a lot of perspective on Web3, because here we are looking at this going, okay, and we can see it for the new thing that it is and how it is really different from the internet that we originally learned in our 20s and early 30s. And so anyway, I think, yeah, there's a bit of Stockholm syndrome going on. We need to break.
That's a good way to put it.
We need to break out of it and see. And I agree, the open wide aspect, from my perspective in the industry and talking to developers and tech people, is that we're at the point now, post the NFT craze, where the tech people are looking for what are the best use cases for this great technology we have. Artists, do you have answers for that? Can we create these conversations? And this is where we're at right now. We're creating these conversations between the artists and the developers to find out what is the best use case for your fan base, for your music, for an NFT. How can we do this? Do we do it? It's time to test, trial and error, and maybe do it quietly.
Yes.
Artists have their Web2 regular fan base, and Web3 can be where we go in it.
Sure.
I'm finding it to be a lot of fun. Web3 social is a lot of fun. It's like internet the way it used to be when, Facebook used to be fun. That was just for a minute when it first started.
But for a minute, yeah.
It's a brand new, the future is wide open. It can be intimidating, but also, hey, water's fine, right?
It is. It's fantastic. And to your point, I think Stockholm syndrome is exactly what's going on. They're so used to it, you don't know any other way. And you've got this opportunity right now. It's so wide open, and you're right, that can be intimidating. Well, I don't know what to do because I can do anything I want. It's too much freedom, and I'm not used to this much freedom. And so, but as artists, if we can begin to dream, if we can begin to daydream about the ideal scenario, not what we're used to, but if you could completely wipe the slate clean and daydream about your ideal of how you want it to be as you put out music, as you create, as you collaborate, as you go to do shows and merchandise and things, and what do you want to do and what do you wish it could be like, and you could make that, you can create that over in Web3. And I think music is definitely one of the most exciting use cases for Web3, I think, for sure.
Yeah, music was a primary driver for a lot of innovation in Web 2 when it first came out too. So streaming, Spotify, then it became, there was Napster, Pirate Bay, Spotify, and then it became visual streaming. Streaming is what it is today because it's music streaming. I want to ask you about then, okay, so if it's so wide open, you can do anything. Where's some practical things? I know you've mentioned it before in conversations we've had previously. The practical first steps to get your feet wet or get around the concepts or whatever. What would you suggest?
Yeah, I would come at it with a playful attitude, with a curiosity. You're not going to just stop all your Web 2 activity and jump over to Web 3. It's going to be a slow kind of experimentation and sort of merging over. You'll probably never completely stop your Web 2 stuff, but you'll add in the Web 3. So I would say number one, pick a wallet, make an account. Now that's pretty wide open by itself, but so listen to the people. They need to listen to people like you, Kim, who are you're bridging the tech and the music. You are a musician, you understand that industry, and you're seeing what the Web3 can do. So they need to listen to you. So when you go, hey, go try this wallet, just go make an account. Don't expect too much. Just play. Just go make an account. And then once you make an account, you're like, oh, look at that. I have an account. Okay, cool. What can I do now? You can play with Web3 social. There are social apps that mimic a lot of the capabilities of, let's say, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, etc. Geode has one. There's one called Orb. There's one called Mastodon. There's one called, they're all out there. Pick one. Just go play. Just go play. Yeah. Yeah, Farcaster. Just goof around. Don't have any expectations. Just play and be like, what is this? Do I like it? What do I like about it? What do I not like about it? You don't have to understand how all the tech works. You just have to understand what it can do for you, and explore and experiment with that. You might try, minting an NFT out of one of your songs. So you could try that. You can play with that on an existing platform, or I don't know. I would wait for Mostro because it's going to be the best thing out there, and play with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just play, just explore. Don't create any big heavy expectation on yourself like you're going to become a Web3 expert overnight. Just explore and have a good time, and just see what's there, and understand that kind of crypto speculation is an entire other side of the culture that you do not have to participate in. It can just be about, what can this technology do for me?
Yeah, exactly.
And what would I?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, just think of it kind of that way, because people can get overwhelmed if their first stop is what's called crypto Twitter. Don't do that. Don't do that. You're going to be terrified, and you're going to be like, I don't even know what they're talking about. Just don't do that. But so make an account, play on some Web3 social. You've got lots of great ideas for them to get going, and just walk. Don't run. Just kind of wade your way in a little bit, swim around.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, walk, don't run. It's going to be a slow progression for all of us transitioning to Web3, and rights holders as well, bigger corporations who are waiting to see I know that they've got blockchain projects. A lot of big corporations have blockchain projects in turn. Like you said, they've got private blockchains, but a lot of rights holders, these large corporations, are also waiting to see adoption and use cases in smaller organizations,
right,
to then evolve and deploy their own too. So I think it's just a matter of time, and I guess we're just early here.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think you are, and I think we are too. I think Geode is too. In terms of, I think within, if I had to put it on a timeline, 5 years, I think 5 years from now, you will see most people using Web3 apps instead of Web2 apps. But I think give it a few years. This is a major revolution in the internet space, and it's going to take some time. So you're still early, which is great. This is the perfect time for artists to get in now, because 5 years from now, Web3 for artists is going to kind of be the way everybody's doing it. So if you kind of get in early and explore and take your time and let those ideas evolve and come along. And when you have ideas, don't be shy about it. Don't be shy about, come to Kim, come see me and go, hey, I have an idea. I really wish there was an app that did this. Let the community know. Somebody might build it.
And can I ask you, so let's end with Geode Blockchain. Can you tell us what should people know about Geode Blockchain? What would you like? What's coming up? Please, whatever you'd like to share.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's it's an all volunteer community thus far. I can't believe we built an entire layer 1 blockchain and a set of about 7 different sort of basic utility apps with no money, just all people coming together to build really practical stuff that we felt was missing in the space. So there's a marketplace where you can buy and sell goods and services, whether physical products, basic digital products, not NFTs yet, but basic marketplace. There's private messaging for individuals and groups and newsletters. There's a social app. There's a resume app where you can put in your work experience. You can register your intellectual property, like you can register that song and hash it and get a fingerprint for it. So sort of basic utilities that we felt were sort of missing in the space. And we want to onboard the world. We want to onboard humanity in order to set them free, right? So, for example, in our marketplace, we built it in a way that it takes no profit. you keep 100%. If you sell something, you keep 100% of that revenue. No middleman taking any profit. And then like over on messaging and social, when there are advertisers, you tell the system what you're interested in seeing ads for today. And when you look at the ad, you get paid directly by the advertiser, no middleman. And why not? Same money, same money. Just instead of going to some centralized entity, it just goes straight to you. And that was my beef. That was like, why can't they just pay me directly for my time and attention? Well, on our system, they do. And so it's a completely different way of thinking about it. And so we're here to set people free, so you can monetize your own time, your own attention, your own creativity, your own productivity. And that's what we're here to do. So our next step, so right now we've got an airdrop going for anybody who comes in, makes an account, and kind of get yourself set up, just basic setup stuff on the different apps. And it will give you some coin for that. And then from here, we are in a big effort to make that ease of use. Let's make onboarding easier. It's not as easy as it needs to be. I want 2 clicks. I'm not there yet, but I want 2 clicks to get on board, make an account. So making that a lot easier. Yeah, making that a lot easier. Making it easier to refer your friends, getting the marketing and advertising out there, getting the Geode coin on exchanges, so that when you're earning coin from advertisers, you can, cash it out for fiat and go buy your groceries with it. And kind of stuff like that, just to get it more connected into community. But we're not going to stop there. So after we do that, we're going to take, from a technical standpoint, we've got all these chains, all these apps. They're just scattered out there. They're scattered. And we want to make the entire internet of all these different chains and apps searchable, linkable, which at the moment it is not. And I think I know how to do that. So we're going to do that. Yeah. And, and even then we want to get into hardware, and not making new hardware, but taking like existing Android phones, just a nice, cheap, simple Android phone, load it with the Geode software and all these capabilities. And you could just be like, well, I'm going to watch a few ads today to pay my cell phone bill, and my bill is paid, and then cut the price on them and get cheap hardware out there for everybody, so that everybody can tie into this opportunity. We've built it to where you can start with nothing. You don't have to show up with money. You can come in with nothing and bootstrap your way up into earning coin. And I want to keep it that way. So that's our big plan, where our logo, our tagline is setting humanity free, and we mean it.
Well, so for those listening out there that have some amazing, wide open ideas, I think you know who to contact.
Yeah, bring them here.
Blockchain, Kathryn and Tom Messegee, absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, so good talking to you, Kathryn. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is fun.
So, as we've discussed today, there is vast potential to reshape creative industries in Web3. Thanks so much to Kathryn Messegee for today's educational journey into the blockchain. Stay tuned to the Mastro podcast for more sessions where tech and tradition get a remix. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platforms, and until next time, tune in and turn up for innovation.